Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for coming today to our webinar. Today we're going to be doing a presentation about identity theft, fraud, and scams, how to protect yourself, and all sorts of great stuff. But before we get into the sort of meat and potatoes of today's presentation, we're going to do just a little bit of, like Zoom bookkeeping, a little bit of information as we wait for more people to join. So for today's webinar, we're going to be in webinar mode. Basically, what this means is that you're all automatically muted and your cameras are off, so please feel free to have some lunch or enjoy while you kick back and watch our presentation today. The chat is disabled because we encourage the use of the Q&A feature on Zoom. So please, if you have questions at any time, pop them in the Q&A feature. Sometimes the button for the Q&A feature is kind of bumped off the Zoom taskbar on the bottom there, but that just means you have to hit the three dots that say more for more of those sort of tools on the Zoom taskbar and find the feature that says Q&A. And then using that, you can submit answers to any questions that we ask you, or submit any questions you would like to us during the presentation today. We will leave time for questions at the end, and or try to answer sort of some more simple questions during the presentation as well. We have a colleague in the background that's going to be helping organize those. And then just so you're all aware, this presentation is being recorded. This and all of our presentations are available for free on our YouTube page, which is a really great resource. So if you ever want to follow back up and say, oh, they were talking about something, but I don't remember what it was, you can always check it out on YouTube. It'll be posted shortly after the presentation is done. So please take a look at that. And then we always also send out a survey after our presentations, along with a number of resources such as the slides. We will send those out to you for having been registered, and the survey on just how we did. So we always read all of the feedback. We always want to know if we can improve or if there's something we could do better, or if you really liked something. We're really down to earth with our feedback with our presentations because we're always looking to try to make sure we reach our community as best as we can. So thank you all so much for that. I'm going to do a little intro. So my name is Ty Robinson. I am one of the community engagement specialists here at the Harvard Federal Credit Union with my boss, Jen Fries, and my coworker, Terrence Bazil. Jen is in the background today. She's going to be dropping links in the chat, as well as helping organize the Q&A for you all, while I kind of take the hosting position today. And then my friend Terrence is also going to be doing some other work as well. So we're a great team. We're always getting involved with the community. And recently, all of us became certified credit union financial counselors. That's why we see the CCUFC on there. So we at least a little bit know what we're talking about. We really are passionate about making sure we bring financial education to our community and our members. So thank you all so much for being here. Real quick intro to what a credit union is, because one of the questions we always get asked is, what is the difference between a credit union and a bank? The main difference is credit unions are not for profit. And what that means is that we do not need to make a profit for any shareholders. We are a financial institution. We do everything a bank does, only better is how we like to say. But basically, we do all the same things. But because we don't need to make a profit, we're really able to reinvest in our community in a lot of different ways, such as we generally have better rates. We waive a lot of the fees that other banks charge for their products and services. And we do one of the bullet points that we love to hit on is we actually refund all ATM fees. If you have an account with us and you use your debit card at an ATM and that ATM charges you a fee, we're going to give you that money back, whether or not we were the ones that charged the fee. So we have all sorts of ways that we love to give back. I mean, my whole role is community engagement, and it exists because of this great platform that we have here at the credit union to be able to give back to our community. So huge fan. Whether or not you're a member or thinking about becoming a member, highly recommend taking a look at it. We're always trying to find ways to give back. But for today, we're talking about scams and fraud, and we are so fortunate to have our brand new fraud and compliance manager here to help us chat about this topic today. I would like to introduce Daniela Schifatelli. She joined Harvard FCU this month as our fraud and compliance manager. She has a background in fraud prevention and risk analysis, working at the Federal Reserve, as well as in consumer and business banking. When she is not catching fraudsters, she is watching true crime documentaries on financial crime. So, real passionate and walking her golden doodle. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Daniela. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump right in.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Ty. And welcome in everyone to today's webinar. Good afternoon. Today, I just wanted to do some touch points on what our overall agenda is going to be today. We'll be taking a look at some of the definitions of fraud, what it is and what it's not, as well as taking a look at some of the types of fraud that have actually hit our members at the Harvard FCU. So we'll be taking a look at identity theft, elder financial abuse, as well as scams. The biggest piece to that is we'll also be taking a look at the steps you can take to identify if you have been a victim of any of those types of fraud, as well as preventative steps as well. And we'll also be going over different tools you might be able to engage in, such as monitoring your credit, things of that nature from a fraud perspective.
All right. So.
Okay, so identity theft, fraud, and scams. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. So we're going to start with how do we define fraud? So according to the FTC, fraud is defined as when a bad actor, fraudster, tries to trick a person or an organization into either disclosing sensitive information or sending money. So there's really two primary purposes of fraud: the compromise of sensitive information. So that could be financials. It could also be personally identifiable information like your social or other pieces of information, or the allocation of stolen funds. So those are really the two primary purposes of it. Some examples of fraud would be, say your wallet is stolen on the T and that fraudster takes your credit card and runs it up at the Apple Store. That is an example of fraud. Another example of fraud might be you receive a counterfeit check as part of an employment scam. Those are clear examples of fraud, but we also wanted to cover what fraud is not. Sometimes there's confusion regarding what types of activity. We really wanted to differentiate fraud from billing disputes. So the next couple of examples I'm going to go over are definitely more in line with billing disputes as far as excuse me.
Do you want to grab your water?
Oh, I'm good for now.
Okay,
But thank you.
Sorry.
I might in a second.
Absolutely.
I apologize.
Great.
But so fraud is not giving someone authorization to use your debit card and then not liking how it's used. So the first example I can think of is you give your coworker money to go pick up lunch and they overtip. They gave you a 30% tip and you're like, I thought 25 was sufficient. But if it's a catering order, you know what I mean? So that would be more of an example of like a billing dispute or a discrepancy, and it's handled completely different than fraud is. Another example, and I've been victim of this myself, forgetting to cancel a subscription during that free trial. The 2 weeks goes by way faster, and next thing you know, you're stuck with an ongoing bill. And I don't want to talk about the number of times I've also forgotten to then continually cancel it. So these are examples of billing disputes. Others examples are if someone is on your account as a joint or an authorized user, and they are authorized to use it, and they do, that it's not necessarily considered fraud because there's not a third party leveraging that without your authorization.
Yeah, authorized being the key word here. Yes.
Also being in line for the next example is, a really common example is, kids logging on to their Roblox account with their parents' credit card, which is logged in, making unauthorized charges, things like that. So kids making purchases without your knowledge is not an example of a fraudulent transaction. It is more of an example of a billing dispute. And with that, we also wanted to really pinpoint that banks will be able to help you with billing disputes, but it's going to be handled differently than a fraud transaction.
Yeah.
Excuse you 1 second.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you talking about that because definitely in this digital age with like microtransactions a lot, especially games, some of them are a little predatory for kids when they get into it. And so they kind of are encouraged even to try to like get little purchases on there. So that's definitely a common thing.
Whether it's skins or whatnot.
Yeah.
This is a reminder to all parents to make sure that their cards, debit cards, credit cards are not linked to. So.
Or saved, especially.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right. What about identity theft?
So one of the things we wanted to cover as far as some of the more common fraud types our members see more often is identity theft, which is defined as when someone uses your personal or financial information without your permission. Some examples of identity theft. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Sorry. Just so we have a visual.
Definitely.
Is if somebody takes your social security number, name, date of birth, and opens new credit accounts in your name, but a lot of the times they'll actually send the cards elsewhere. So they'll have most of your personally identifiable information, but then once the cards are opened, they're sending it elsewhere. Another example is for tax refund scams or things like
Mm.
that. And I've personally seen firsthand how devastating the effects are when somebody's able to obtain your social security number and then file a fraudulent tax return. I previously had a coworker whose social security number was compromised during a data breach, and the fraudster was able to submit an illegitimate tax return using their social security number. But working through those pieces was just kind of a hard because they go by the system of record. So first in whoever, so it was up to my coworker to prove his identity afterwards because he was the second person to file. So there's so many pieces to identity theft and the importance of keeping your information safe.
Yeah.
And we'll go into in a few more slides as far as like how to handle and remediate if you believe that you're a victim of identity theft, as well as steps you can take to help prevent it as well.
That's great.
So,
Yeah. Thanks for going over that. All right. And scams.
so scams are a type of fraud in which somebody is intentionally trying to obtain either money or sensitive information. Now, I've pulled a list of some of the more common scams that our members have identified that they've experienced. So some examples, probably the biggest one is romance scams. And one thing I really wanted to call out about scams is that scammers will repeatedly play upon human emotions in order to take advantage of unsuspecting victims. So that emotional connection followed by pressure tactics to try and gain access to either sensitive information or financial gain is really what you'll see throughout a lot of these examples we'll walk through. So an example of a romance scam is where a third party will contact a victim, usually online, to build trust and eventually establish a relationship, and then they'll start to ask for money. That's just one example that we'll be going over today, as well as phishing. And I really wanted to call special attention to phishing just because of the number of phishing attempts that we've seen recently, both at Harvard FCU and also across the industry. So what is phishing? Phishing is a type of cybercrime where bad actors sorry about that. This is a phishing example that we'll walk through, but
Yeah, go back. Yep.
sorry, phishing is a type of cybercrime where bad actors will actually try and trick individuals into either revealing sensitive information about an account or making some sort of payment. One thing I wanted to really call out is the next example we're going to walk through is an example of an email phishing attempt, but there are so many different ways in which fraudsters will try and contact consumers. So there's via text, via SMS text is referred to as smishing. If a bad actor tries to leverage a QR code, like say you're paying for parking around town, QR code phishing is called quishing. So there's many different subtypes of phishing, but the most important thing is stay vigilant, pay attention, and vet the sources before you enter any personal information. If you go to the next slide, we'll walk through an example of a phishing email. So taking a look at this example here, right off the bat, what we have is a notification of shipment intended for delivery. And then it's an email that's asking right away for us to do something. It's got, lots of links to click on, and it makes it sound like there's an immediate need for us to click on this link to finish that so we can get whatever our important package is. But if we really take a look at it with a secondary pair of eyes, we know right away that there are a number of things that should be giving us concern about this email. First and foremost is the scammer didn't even use the correct logo for UPS. So that's biggest indicator. One thing I always look at when I receive an email that I wasn't expecting is to look at the sender. You can see that the domain does not match a UPS domain as well. And a couple other signs. Your package number up in the email address is different than the one that's actually contained within the email as well. And there's lots of links trying to get you to click on those. If you were to hover over them, you would see that they're taking you to third-party sites and not actually UPS. So lots of different things that you can kind of, you take the time to validate before you click on anything. We always say click before you, or think before you click, as far as like slowing down and not just entering information into it. And then finally, within this email, this is one of the things that is just another piece. If you were to actually Google the address of where you're supposed to pick up the package, it is not a UPS facility store. So there are just a lot of times different clues that you can look for within a phishing email example to try and determine, is this really a secure source? Should I be entering my information here? Also, fun fact, anecdotally, but using things like when you have an address you're not sure of or things like that, using Google Maps is a fraud strategy we've implemented from the beginning of my career. So as soon as Google Maps became live, vetting, a building, vetting a location to see like, is it what has been a fraud strategy. So just something to think about as far as prevention.
Can't trick the map.
Exactly. Google Maps will tell you if it's a building, if it's an actual UPS store, so that Google view will sometimes help you vet in different ways without actually having to click on any links.
That's great. I like using like Google as a resource. It's very helpful.
So here we wanted to take some time to look at another example of a phishing email, but this time we just wanted to take a pause and you tell us, what about this in particular is suspicious? Are there any red flags that you were able to identify within this?
Yeah, if anybody wants to just hop in the Q&A and let us know if they see anything, what specifically they see in this email that might be a red flag, something you'd want to think about before you clicked. But one thing I wanted to talk just quickly about too is they always make it, as you said, they seem very urgent, like you have to click on a link because otherwise something's going to happen. You're going to lose your package. You're going to do this or that. But nothing is so urgent that you can't take a deep breath and look at it and figure it out, So I see somebody here has mentioned that the email address, that's right. If we take a look, the email address does not look like it's coming from certainly Google.
Microsoft. Yep. So that's definitely one of them. Are there any? Oh,
yeah, we got spelling errors, incorrect logo, email address. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, we got customer.
These are all good finds,
extra
guys.
space here. Logo. That's good. That's a tricky one because it does look kind of like the Gmail colors, right? But it is not the actual like font or the actual Google logo, right? So good work, everybody. Well done. Let's take a bit of a closer look at what some of the other breakdowns are.
So yeah, I think you guys caught a lot of them. So calling out the misspellings, calling out the email address being from a different domain. That was an old Gmail logo from back in the day, as well as that pressure to scan for viruses, that immediate call to action. So you guys were able to identify everything. So
yeah,
good job. Okay, so we did want to take a little bit of time to talk about elder financial abuse. That is a serious fraud issue that a lot of people experience, but I don't think enough people talk about, just from what I've seen. And in particular, with June being Elder Financial Abuse Awareness Month, we really just wanted to take a moment to speak on the topic, particularly because education and prevention with this type of fraud are absolutely paramount in helping prevent it. Unfortunately, there are many scammers out there who take advantage of vulnerable populations who might not be as well informed. So within elder financial abuse, the bad actors target specifically elder individuals to try and coerce them into either providing information to do account takeover or sending money as part of a scam. One thing we wanted to potentially go over was to address some of the common scam tactics that have been utilized to target our older members. So what we did was we found a list of the most common ones that we've excuse me, that we've worked through, and then we'll just be taking a minute to speak to each of them. So probably one of the most common types of scams that target the elderly are an idea of the sweepstakes scams. They also call it the lottery scam. It's the idea that there's either a prize or some sort of cash incentive waiting for you that you've won, so long as you either pay the taxes on it, the fees, processing fees, or things like that. So basically what happens is the scammer, under the guise of the receipt of winnings, basically says that pay these upfront costs and you'll get a lump sum of, I don't know, $50,000, for example. However, there's no winnings, and the real issue behind the scam is often the funds are collected in an untraceable manner. So they'll usually ask for cash or gift cards or money orders, ways that those funds can't be recalled. And then unfortunately the victim's out the money, never sees anything that was promised. So again, that play on emotion of, hey, there's, all you need to do is just pay like the $50 processing fee and you're a winner of, Publishers Clearinghouse or things like that. So really playing on the idea of.
That's great. I want to chime in real quick because some folks don't know this, but a debit card is actually a step that helps protect you, because debit cards you can do chargebacks on or a dispute on. The debit card itself is like a protecting like piece of a way to make a payment. Whereas like you were saying, some of these things like cash or even ACH transfers, stuff like that, it can be really hard to reverse that if you realize that maybe it was illegitimate. So just something to keep in mind is generally playing with the debit card is a little bit more safe if you're not sure.
Definitely making sure it's a traceable form.
Yeah.
So it's not just you've sent the payment in and you're not able to really recoup it. Another example I wanted to go over is just in regards to tech support scams, but I want to caveat this by saying that everyone is susceptible to tech support scams regardless of age. In fact, within the past 18 months, the FTC had released an alert regarding a Comcast scam where scammers were pretending to be from Comcast in order to remote into people's computers. So I'm going to give a little background onto the hows and the whys of it. So tech support scams are a way of remoting into somebody's device. It could be a phone, it's usually a computer, but the scammer will send a message pop up and then it'll appear with a phone number, call this number, ask for technical support, and then during the course of that call, they'll either gain access to devices and account information that they shouldn't have access to, or they'll another tactic is to charge a fee over the phone for quote unquote helping. So there's definitely different things to look out for, but we can all be susceptible to tech support scams. So just be mindful. And again, we're going to probably repeat a lot of words. Think before you click, vet the source. So we're going to have certain reminders throughout this webinar as far as ways of keeping yourself safe and your loved ones as well.
Yeah, common theme just in our presentations in general is to really make sure you take a deep breath on things. You think about stuff, even if it seems really like really intense or really quick, you have to act, that kind of thing. Like there's always time to be able to think about a situation, research it a little bit, whether or not it's like scams or whether or not it's related to something else. Always just try to make sure you do a little bit of research, look into things, and protect yourself.
Definitely. One of the other scams that actually I've dealt with in my own personal life is the grandparent scam. And it is especially awful because, again, it's playing upon human emotion and the trust of family. So in these types of situations, a scammer is going to call and pretend to be the individual's grandchild. So this happened to me in my family, so I'm aware of it. But asking for urgent help. And in this situation that I'm aware of, so the scammer called my grandparents and said that I was stuck abroad for travel and they needed to wire out $3,000 immediately. So I'm so lucky and thankful that my grandma immediately picked up the phone and called my mom. But a lot of the times that's not always the case because there's things that the scammers get to say, like sworn to secrecy, or, no one else can know, or I'm going to get in so much trouble. So there's really that play upon emotion and the don't tell anybody. So that's just one of the ways that these types of scams happen, because obviously you care about your family, you want to help them. So
I think one thing that can help too, especially if you are not sure, like I had somebody, a Facebook friend, reach out similar, they got hacked and like, it's like, oh, I need $100, like, don't ask me why or something like that. And I paused and I called them directly on their phone number, right? So it's like, if when in doubt and you're not quite sure it could be real or not, try to reach out yourself on a direct line separate from the one that they have reached out to you on, just to make sure that you can have that two-touch point, you know?
Absolutely. And in a couple slides, we're going to get into spoofing, where it makes it's a whole another level of complexity. But again, really taking the time to vet sources, think before you click on anything or enter information.
Yeah.
So, and then the final scam we're actually going to be going over as part of the elder financial abuse awareness is in relation to government impersonation scams. A lot of the times, older folks will be targeted through supposed outreach via Social Security Administration or Medicare or things like that. Like, please provide updated information. And that's a way that scammers are able to get that information. Again, just in regards to that outreach piece, what makes impersonation scams even more complicated is the fact that a lot of the times they will actually look to be calling from a number. So the 800 number will actually match either the IRS or the SSA. So one thing that we always encourage with the rise in spoofing, if you receive a call out of the blue, you did not contact them, and you're unsure as to who's contacting you, immediately disconnect the call. And like Ty said, call back on a number via an outbound call, because we're not always 100% sure with spoofing, like who is really masking that caller ID piece. So it's really important to vet the source.
Yeah, and when it's incoming, they can kind of spoof or create a fake trail. But when you're the one reaching out, you can go through the more official channels and it'll be safer.
Definitely. So one thing we wanted to also circle back to was just in regards to what are some of the steps we can take to help prevent against identity theft. I know that we can take every precaution in the world and then still become a victim of fraud. But we want to just, take this time to let you know that you're not alone. There are millions of fraud victims, and there are so many resources. So we're going to speak to some of the things you can do to both help prevent experiencing identity theft, and then the steps you can take if you do become a victim of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing too that I do is I think some jobs will offer a sort of identity theft protection, kind of like as part of the benefits package, where they can have like a monitoring thing online. I use that myself through one of my work benefits, just to be safe, because again, like Daniela said, you can never be 100% safe no matter what. But there's a lot of great resources out there and a lot of great things you can do.
Definitely. And one thing I wanted to speak to in conjunction with Ty saying is the monitoring effort. You going in and taking a look on a daily or weekly basis on your open accounts, as well as monitoring your credit, is going to be the first indicator you're going to have that somebody has access to your accounts. So that monitoring effort is the biggest lift you can do. So based upon those monitoring efforts, if you see any unusual charges or transactions, even if they're micro deposits, even if they're under $1, it is so important to reach out to your financial institution and advise them that you did not make that, because those could be the first step in unauthorized charges. It could turn into a bigger charge later. It could be them testing the transfer or things like that. So definitely, if you identify anything unauthorized, bring it to your financial institution's attention right away. So
yeah, absolutely.
Another indicator of potential identity theft is if you stop receiving statements or bills in the mail. That is usually an indicator that there's been an account maintenance. So you definitely want to contact in to your whether it's your credit union, your bank, whatnot, and just determine, like, is everything still the same? You can also ask things about were there any recent requests done on the account, but just to verify there isn't anything unusual going on.
Yeah, especially if you're getting those mailers consistently and then you don't, it probably means somebody maybe changed the address on the account if they had access, or signed up for things and maybe changed the email or something. So definitely want to keep that in mind.
And then in conjunction with this, if you also receive any credit cards, loans in the mail that you did not apply for, you're going to want to reach out right away to that institution. You do not have to keep anything open that you did not yourself apply for. But in conjunction with reaching out to the financial institution that issued the product, you're also going to want to reach out to the credit reporting agencies as well,
Mm.
to let them know that those are not your accounts,
Yeah.
and they could get those removed so that the information's accurate. And then also during monitoring efforts, if you are unexpectedly denied credit, that can also be a sign that there's something going on that you're not aware of. Now, it's not to say in every case that you're denied credit, there's something fraudulent going on, but there could be something on your credit bureau report that you're unaware of. So those monitoring efforts, looking at those accounts, whether they be weekly, just making sure that you have an idea of the health of your accounts and your credit information.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a look at your stuff. Make sure you're checking it from time to time. Just keep a good eye on it. The more you're aware of what's happening with your accounts and your information, the more you'll be able to catch something if it happens.
And then also just another reminder, annualcreditreport.com is where you can go and take a look at those, at least the credit reports. So if you notice any unknown accounts, inquiries you didn't apply for right away, reach out to the credit reporting agencies, but also do your due diligence to figure out where those are coming from as well.
Yeah, and that's a resource that we will provide a link to, as well as you will have information about in the slide deck that we send out as well. So you can look forward to that.
So one thing we wanted to go over, so if you are noticing those action items we mentioned before, if you think that you may have become a victim of identity theft, we do want to let you know that you're not alone and there are resources that we're going to go over. So first thing you want to do, take a deep breath. We're going to go over in detail some of the things that we could take to remediate.
Yeah, such a sense of urgency, especially if you find out that you are a victim, that you feel like you have to fix everything all at once, right? But in trying to rush through things, you might make things even worse or trip up or not quite know what to do, right? So first thing to do is take a deep breath. There's always time for a deep breath, be able to transition to the next step.
Slow and steady. You don't want to make any rash decisions, or like you will work through it. And I'm going to list out two different resources that I think are absolutely amazing. The first being the Identity Theft Resource Center. It's ITRC for short. They are an amazing nonprofit that just provide so much information as far as what to do, steps you can take, education, awareness. One of the reasons I'm mentioning them first is if you're the type of person that wants to speak to somebody real time to figure out, that is a number you can call, get a real person on the phone right away, and they'll ask you certain questions to figure out how did the compromise occur, and then what are the steps based upon what information might be compromised. Because one of the things that's kind of tricky is it's not always a one size fits all solution, depending on if it was a data breach as far as how your information was compromised versus was there a targeted attack and you provided there's just different. There are so many different workflows to the remediation process, and they have experts there to help you real time. Now, if you don't want to talk to somebody on the phone, or not everybody's a fan of calling in, you can also just file a report. You can go onto identitytheft.gov. That site right there, a couple things. You're going to need your identity theft report for if you're going to be placing any alerts on your credit bureau report. Going down the road, but also they also have different checklists and resources to kind of walk you through different steps as well. So two really great, amazing resources if you do experience identity theft.
That's great. It's good to know that there's so much support out there if you are a victim, you know?
Definitely. And then also we just want to remind you that if you do notice fraud or experience identity theft, you're going to want to alert your financial institutions and creditors immediately, and any account that may have been compromised needs to be closed and reopened with a new product. Because I cannot tell you time and time again how many times, like, oh, my account number was compromised, but I didn't notice any transactions. Well, they're going to hold on to that information, and there could be a future fraud because of that, whether it's a fraud check or sorry, a counterfeit check or something along those lines. Like, just because you don't notice it right away, it is recommended that anytime an account information is compromised, as far as, routing number, account number, that account's closed and a new instrument gets opened.
Yeah, something that I've seen is they will test it to see if it works and then wait for the right moment and then do like 50 transactions in a row or something, just to try to get through as much as possible on your account. So they'll wait till it's either like late or, a certain day or whatever, or sell it off to somebody else and that kind of thing. So even if you've noticed something, you should definitely take action.
And immediately if
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one thing that I kind of touched upon, but wanted to go into further information on was what you can do just regarding your credit if you are a victim of identity theft. So first and foremost, if you are a victim of identity theft, you are eligible to get a free fraud alert, an extended alert on your credit report, but you do need to contact all three credit reporting agencies. So you do need to reach out to TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian to let them know that you've been a victim of fraud. They will ask for your report that you did file at identitytheft.gov. But the great thing about that alert is that it's good for 7 years. And any account that is attempted to be opened under your name will have to verify with you before it's open. And that stands for banking account, so checking and savings, as well as different credit accounts. So that is one option for folks, is that alert. You're also able to freeze your credit with all three credit reporting agencies. However, if you know that you're the type of person that within the next 6 months you're going to be applying for student loans, you might be getting a car payment, or you might be needing to have your credit pulled, freezing is maybe not the best option because you have to manually go in and unfreeze every single time. So every semester you might have to be unfreezing your all three credit bureau reports to run credit for like a student loan or things like that. But if you know that you're in a great position and you're not going to need any additional credit, you're not going to be credit seeking for a while, freezing it will just prevent anybody from even accessing that file. So
Yeah, that's
two
great.
different methods. And then finally, for any, and this is just a good rule of thumb, if your devices have ever been compromised, accounts, phone, laptop, those things, ensure that you change your passwords and enable multi-factor authentication when possible. And when it comes to password setups, I don't know if I'll probably mention this in future slides. Length is much better than complexity. So passphrases might be a way to go, but you want to make sure you have unique passwords for each site as well.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that is especially for a time, and I think it must still be going on, is they'll get a password of yours somehow through some data breach or something, and then they'll do a thing where they test that password on like all of the major websites and see if it works across multiple with the same login information. Because so many people, of course, like it's easier to remember one password and just use that for everything. But especially in this day and age, it's much better to have unique password for everything. There's a lot of different tools out there, like through Google and stuff. Sometimes you can have different passwords saved for you, so you don't have to remember each and every single one. But try not to use the same password for everything is one of the biggest ways you can protect yourself against sort of financial fraud and scam, and as well as just like in general protection of your information.
Definitely piggybacking off of what Ty said, if there's password managers out there as well that can kind of help you. Like, I don't have a great memory, so having one for each site upon login is
it's tricky, especially because you want to try to avoid patterns, right? So if you have similarities or similar things in your passwords, that's what can be more easily broken into. So yeah. All right.
So, excuse me. As we wrap up, we just wanted to leave you with a few tips to help prevent against, different types of fraud, whether it be identity theft, scams, elder financial abuse. Unfortunately, there's no guaranteed way to really ensure we'll be able to avoid all fraud at all times, but these are just things, tools in your back pocket to help prevent against fraud. So, as far as different ways, again, for ways to protect yourself, be cautious, particularly if high pressure or urgent demand. So your boss reaches out after hours and says, hey, I urgently need you to send that ACH to accounting because we need it in before they reconcile the books at whatever time. Like, that should be a red flag right there, because one, it's unexpected. Two, it's an urgent request asking you to do something. But three, does that make sense? So these are questions you really kind of want to be asking yourself. If the communication's unsolicited or familiar, it's really rare that somebody needs immediate attention that you can't take time to reach out and say like, hey, I'm going to give you a call back on your office line. Are you still in the office? Or things like that, where you really vet the request. So again, ask yourself, does this make sense? And as a general rule, never give up personal or financial information with anyone who did not initiate contact with. So if you can't vet it, just don't disclose it. So Another key piece in fraud prevention, and as far as I believe, is really educating yourself on common scams, being aware of what's out there and how they happen. So staying informed via, I know Consumer Financial, CFPB and the FTC are great websites you can go to. They always have common scams, different information, what's going on as far as like the industry, things like that. And a couple different reminders just as far as
Like secure websites, right?
yes, I think that is the in line with installing trusted software and on devices and things like that. You can always vet to see whether or not, like when you're clicking on a link, if it's secure or not by ensuring that it's HTTPS
S.
or S for secure. So making sure you're clicking on a valid site, vetting it, and also making sure that you're password protecting all your devices. So phone, laptop, making sure you have trusted software to help protect against those devices are definitely ways you can help protect against from a electronic means.
Yeah, it's good.
Of fraud prevention. We mentioned this before a couple different times.
Yep.
Using strong and unique passwords on each and every account. Again, passphrases, length over complexity.
Yeah.
So a couple things. We're gonna probably have a couple different phrases from this. Think before you click.
Yeah.
Length over complexity.
Yeah.
One
thing I do sometimes for passwords is I'll do like 3 separate words that kind of are just random words with like a space in between, because it makes it quite longer, but it's easier for me to remember, because the longer it is, the harder it would be for like an auto generator to determine what it could be. So that's a trick that can sometimes be helpful.
And then finally, we wanted to just mention, assume that any unsolicited correspondence, especially ones that request personal information or financial information, is suspicious and to treat it as such. So again, if you're not sure, don't disclose it. And then just in regards to monitoring efforts, we've talked about this before, but checking through your accounts on a regular basis, including your credit bureau reports as well, to see what's been opened. Are there new inquiries under your name?
Yeah, that's really great. And talking about the free credit report, annualcreditreport.com. This is like the place to go to get your credit report, because this is the one that's like directly from the credit bureaus. It gives you the report on all of your credit from all 3 of the bureaus. And importantly is that sometimes, not even fraudulently, there can be a mix-up if somebody has the same name as you. I've heard of this happening where something of theirs, some line of theirs could get opened accidentally under your name if their name is the exact same, first and last name. So sometimes it's not even like a sinister thing. It's just something that can happen. So checking your credit report, at least we recommend a couple times a year, just to making sure that everything that's on there is something that you know about and is something that you applied for and is in your name, and something that you are cognizant of is really important.
And a reminder to check each of the 3.
Yes.
Because there could be something that's masked on one that isn't on the others.
Absolutely. And this is actually a great tie-in. We recently added a new feature to our own online banking and the mobile app, which is called Savvy Money. Savvy Money is a really great, awesome like tool that's just automatically available for all of our users on the online banking, which gives daily updates, real-time alerts, personalized tips, and special offers to help with your credit, as well as telling you what your credit is and telling you if it does like raise or go down a point or 2. This is actually really great, because when I go on to the mobile banking app for the credit union, it's always there. It shows my credit score once I've logged in, and it shows little tips and things. And this is great to help prevent fraud, because if you notice that your credit score changes very drastically all of a sudden, especially if you didn't take didn't do anything with your own credit cards or anything like that, that's probably a first sign indicator that somebody has your information and is opened a fraudulent line or something like that. So this is a really great thing. I don't even have to go into it. I can just log into the app, and then it's right there on the homepage. So it's something I see every day, whether I went to look at it or not, which means that I can always kind of keep a monitor on it. It's a really awesome tool. So stuff like that. is very, very helpful, especially if you're a member with us, but I'm sure a lot of the other financial institutions have similar tools and different types of alerts you can set up directly through your online banking. So that's something else that's very good to take a look at. Make sure you're using your resources.
Identity Theft Resource Center is, again, a great nonprofit organization. If you or someone that you know is a victim of identity theft, they just have so many different tools and resources. You can connect to a real person who's going to give you an individualized remediation and recovery plan that you can take, and just they have so much information as far as securing accounts and devices and next steps. So we highly encourage that this just be another piece of information you can leverage.
Love that. Love being able to reach a real person. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on here as well. So it's always good to make sure you have that resource, right? And another one, we here at Harvard FCU, we are partnered with this wonderful, amazing organization called GreenPath. GreenPath is a third-party financial wellness and education services, not-for-profit or nonprofit. They're amazing. We work with them for so many things. One of the great things that they also have is a whole sort of resource website as part of their website that helps with identity theft and fraud resources as well. So this is a QR code directly to them, but they have all sorts of different tools and resources you can use if you feel like your identity theft, or you might be the victim of identity theft, or you feel like you noticed something strange. You can definitely connect through them as well. They have a really great platform. And I want to talk to them about them a little bit more because they're one of our strongest partners, and they offer through us, through the credit union, free financial counseling to anyone that is referred to from the credit union, regardless of whether or not they're a member. So this is a really awesome platform where if you reach out either through a phone number, which is right on their website there, or through the website, and you just let them know that you were referred to by Harvard Federal Credit Union, they will provide free individual financial counseling to help you in your exact situation. They do all sorts of things. They do housing counseling, budget. They'll build a budget with you. They can do debt counseling if you're struggling with a lot of debt. They can help you find a plan to try to help pay it off, try to help give you some alleviation. They do student loan counseling, credit counseling. They're really amazing. If you're trying to figure out what next steps you should take after this presentation, if you have any worry or you notice that maybe some of these things can apply to you in your life, definitely check out GreenPath as a resource. They're really awesome. So thank you all so much. We're going to open it up for questions now. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, that would be awesome. Please, we would love to have our expert here be able to help you with any questions you may have. So, okay, looks like we do have a question about the resource, linking out the resources that we've talked about today. So Jen has been really great at providing links to a number of the resources that we've talked about in the chat as we've gone. But as I mentioned also, we will be sending out today's presentation in a PDF slide format for anyone that's registered and came to the presentation. You'll receive an email with the resources as well as our survey link after today. So you will be able to refer to those resources, as well as the recording of this will be on YouTube. So really any version of this that you want, you will have access to. So very glad to have that. And then it looks like also we have a question. So what are some of the warning signs of elder financial abuse?
Definitely. So some of the things that are kind of key indicators that either someone is taking advantage of the situation or potential scam for what we consider the population of elders. It's a lot of times the first thing that you'll first notice is like isolation from either family or trusted advisors. So if you notice that they're starting to pull away or maybe just not reach out as much, that could just be a concerted effort to maybe double down on efforts as far as like, I'm going to make sure that I contact them weekly instead of like just not letting them kind of recuse themselves. Be more engaged and checking in on them. Like that is one of the biggest preventative measures, is really just staying engaged, checking in on family members, loved ones, and staying informed as well. There's also some other warning signs as well. If, your loved one who's typically really good about finances has confusion about financial transactions, or you start to see out of pattern activity like large cash withdrawals or depletions, or even unusual purchases or transfers, these could all be different warning signs that, you want to make sure that you engage with your loved one, that you reach out.
Yeah.
stay
Yeah, that's really
connected.
good, especially if you're noticing anything unusual or a shift in their usual behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah,
behavior or demeanor, things like that.
yeah, that's great. Okay, and then looks like we have one more question here. How do I protect myself and loved ones from becoming a victim?
Gotcha. Well, we have a couple different phrases we went over. Think before you click.
Yep, that's right. We've been coming up with them.
Yeah,
Remember our
a real
catchphrases, guys. This is important.
think before you click. But
Yes.
honestly, no, it's so important to like really verify any request that you receive. Don't act, out of emotion or, immediate. Like
Mhm.
slow down, make sure that the request, whatever it is valid. Staying educated and informed. So really being on top of, different scam types or different types of fraud that are up and coming, like even paying attention to the news, like the number of scams, like when there were a lot of disasters in
Mhm.
the, North Carolina, and like the number of charity scams and donations
Mm.
that came out of that. So just
Yeah.
being informed and aware of like what potentially could be coming down the line. Other things that I'm really big fan of: multi-factor authentication,
Mhm.
password protecting accounts,
Yeah.
things of that nature. Um, really making sure that your devices are protected and you're not really responding to unsolicited requests for information would probably be the top two.
Yeah, and when in doubt, if you get reached out to by anybody, even if they spoofed and looks real, uh, as you said so greatly before, disconnect and then try to reach out yourself on a direct line, because it's hard to know directly what something's coming from, and it's easy, not easy, but it's possible to fake that. Whereas if you're reaching out on an open and direct line that's secure, then you'll have a much better sense of whether or not the communication that was sent your way is real or not.
Definitely, it's so much
Yeah.
easier to mask the internal number when you're calling, when you receive a call, versus when you call out, that's the number you're calling.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's who you're speaking with.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, thank you guys for asking some questions. Really appreciate it. Just a couple more kind of things to hit on here real quick before we finish up. First is that survey I mentioned earlier. Like I said, we always do a survey after our presentations. We personally read all of the feedback. We're always looking to improve, trying to find ways that we can increase our conversations and make sure that the way that we're talking about things is actually in a way that our community and our members find useful and helpful and can learn and grow from. So if you get a moment after, this will be part of the post web workshop packet that you get sent in the email. Please fill out the survey if it's something that you'd be interested in doing. We'd love to have some feedback. And then I do want to say that we do also have a lot of different other channels you can reach out to us on. If perhaps you had a question or you think of a question later and you'd like to reach out still and ask us or have a more sort of email way of asking a question, we always have an open inbox here, connect@harvardfcu.org. We're always looking to receive questions or any sort of other follow-up from our presentations. And we do have a couple other different social channels, as well as a blog and a lot of great resources on our website, including a whole sort of education platform called Thrive, where there's all sorts of different videos and stuff you can learn from, as well as our YouTube channel where all of our webinars go. So all sorts of stuff you can take a look at. Please feel free to do that if that's something that you want to follow up on or are curious what other resources we have. We also have a new branch coming soon. This is very exciting for us. It's going to be at One Brigham Circle. It's going to be opening a little later this summer, so keep an eye out for that. But especially if you're in that area and you'd like to be able to swing by a branch of ours more easily, look forward to that. So yeah, that's our newest news from us here at Harvard Federal Credit Union. Thank you all so much for being part of today's presentation. And like I said, there's all sorts of ways you can follow up with us or ask questions or find more resources if you need it. So thank you again all so much for being here. Hope you have a wonderful day and stay safe out there.
Thank you, guys.